Quorum present, so therefore the CQ meeting can start. First thing on the agenda is the minutes of the January 2013 meeting. Anybody have any comments?
I've read them and I emailed Christine one small change, and I am satisfied, and I will move them approved.
Approved as amended.
As amended.
Okay. Anybody else have comment? Can I have a vote?
Yeah, sure.
Those in favor? Okay, those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Any correspondence?
Nope.
All right. The public portion of CEQ usually is deferred. It's on the agenda. However, if anybody is here to speak or address a project, we will defer that to the actual project discussion. All right. So next we have the Historic Trust docket and the director's report.
Okay, I don't have any new updates on the housing program or the custodial agreements. It's the status quo. We're still working on a few agreements to get them to signature. So I'd like to spend the time today on the three projects we brought forward for your review as the Historic Trust. The first is the proposed Long Island Maritime Museum Surface Water Transportation Center, more commonly known as a boathouse. And just to give you some of the background of the review process for this project, the marine railway, which this building is to go at the end of the railway, was reviewed as part of the conceptual plan for the Maritime Museum site in 2002 and approved by the CEQ. Since that time, the need for the boathouse for the restoration of their historic boats and maintenance of the boats became more obvious, and in 2005 they amended that conceptual plan to add the boathouse at the end of the railway, and this was approved by the CQ and also went to the legislature and was approved. But they had to, that was just a concept. They didn't have any real plan at that time. So today they're coming back with a full set of plans for our review and comment. And also this is in place in a sense from the rope walk building that was to be constructed in the original conceptual plan. That's now been abandoned, and instead they're building the boathouse. So it's been a long time of a discussion and a review as to what was needed at the museum site, and I think Executive Director Steve Jones from the Maritime Museum, if you could give us a little background as to why this is needed and what it's to be used for, and maybe just a brief description of the grant that you acquired.
Sure. All in 2 minutes or less.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, the name is very tortuous. Surface Transportation, whatever. But that comes from the grant program, Transportation Enhancement Grant Program of the federal government. We have to have this as a separate museum, and what it is doing is this building and the railway are interpreting the history of vessels, commercial vessels on the Great South Bay, and also all over Long Island. The vessels that worked both the Long Island Sound and the Great South Bay, and even in the Atlantic Ocean, there were maintenance ports like Freeport, Bayshore, Amityville, Patchogue, and other areas. And so the boats had to be built, and they had to be brought in for maintenance. So what's happened over the years is that all these boathouse marine railway buildings have disappeared. The most recent one is in Patchogue. It was demolished last year down by the Blue Points Brewing Company, which borrowed the name from the oysters. So there are very few of these buildings left. Conklin's out in Sterling Creek and Greenport still exists and is still used, but there are very few of them left. And the idea is to have a facility, a covered facility, where you can pull a boat out of the water on a railway and have it covered over inside. So the railway here in West Sayville has two components. It has an underwater component that goes up through the through the DEC wetland jurisdiction area, and then there's an upland or adjacent portion of the railway when it is essentially becoming flat. That is the portion that would have the building over top of it. And the idea is to be able to take a boat out. The wood boats generally are better supported from outside underneath rather than from a sling, because a sling will put undue pressure on the keel and the ribs.
Yeah.
So it's better to support it from the outside. So we have the rails on site, we have the wood on site, we have the rail ties are going to actually be heavy, high-density plastic. I tried to get ties from the Long Island Railroad. They said they're creosote, you can't have them, we can't do anything with creosote. So I got these really nice high-density plastic ties that we're going to use in the upland portion. The underwater portion of the railway is going to be longleaf yellow pine, which lasts for a very long period of time and doesn't need any preservative or anything. The building itself is going to be basically a museum that will interpret the history of the Blue Points Company, Blue Points oysters, Blue Points, the clamming part of it, and will also be there'll be a visitors gallery there, which will, so people can watch and see the boats being either rebuilt, repaired, maintained, what have you. We'll also have obviously an outdoor portion of the railway where we can do just quick haul outs for a couple of days and then put the boats back in. So the building has had a bit of an evolution since the time of when I applied for the grant back in '07 and got that secured. And it's changed a bit, obviously, because of the budget and the materials and everything. So where it's at right now is that we have a building that it is, I would say, fairly faithful to the look of what these buildings were back in the day. Where everybody's still wrestling with how much money do we have to pay for the types of siding and roofing and what have you. But I think, as you'll see from the presentation, it's a good-looking building, and we're anxious to get going and to proceed with it.
Steve, what time period would these boathouses, let's say the heyday, the high point of their use in construction?
Yeah, it's I guess well post Civil War, like 1880s through even up to the present day. But there's only maybe one or two left on Long Island. But they were these kind of boathouses were very popular from like the 1880s through the pre-World War II, the 1930s. And then I would say the advent of fiberglass is the thing that really changed the boating industry dramatically and allowed for boats to be hauled out, quickly cleaned, put back in. Didn't need to have a structure where you needed to do some long-term maintenance.
Just got a power wash. Jim?
Yes?
First I wanted to just say, I really appreciate that we all went over there to the site. That has given a great context to understanding what the building is going to do, and it was a very exciting place to visit. It's a place I had never been to before, and it's really got such great facilities there. I think it's a very exciting thing, and I think this is a great attribute to be incorporating. And I think the sensitivity with which this was done is it's quite elegant, that it's in the location it is, and that it's been very sensitive design-wise to the surrounding buildings, and that the view shed has been maximized as much as possible, given what the size, because it's a fairly sizable structure in the view shed, but you've maintained a good portion, so I think it's a very exciting project.
Given the location, we would have preferred to have a more sweeping view from the front door of the museum, but
Yeah.
but the railway is where it is, and we just don't want to move the railway. So
Yeah.
now the building has to be a certain height in order to get the dimension that we need under the trusses,
Yeah,
from the rails up to the underside of the trusses.
yeah.
So that's why it's tall the way it is, because of the truss structure.
Well, it's a very nice building. I think it's
Yeah.
quite apropos to what should be there. So I think it's really very exciting.
Do you have pictures of the
Uh,
old building?
Just, Larry Field, the architect, will also give a presentation to explain the details of the design. I don't know if any questions relate to that. If we want to hear his presentation first.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Larry Feely from BBS Architects did the plans for this, and he'll explain, it might answer some of your questions.
Let me hit two quick questions first. One, is this going to be protected against any kind of storm surge? We were talking about that a little
Answer
bit.
that, yeah.
Okay. Short answer, yes?
Yes.
I mean, are you going to elevate it, or can you discuss that in a minute or so?
We really racked our brains to make this work so that it would take care of the flood situations, but also keep the building down. Because if we built this to the floodplain elevation,
You'd have to be up about 6
building
feet.
building would be up about 3 feet higher than the railway, which would put them down in a hole, which kind of defeats the purpose of the project. So we implored New York State Department of State, actually, with the building code. We went to Richard Smith locally. And because of the type of building this is, we're actually allowed to do something called wet flood proofing. And what that means is that you're actually allowing the water to come into the building. So what we have is flood vents all the way around the perimeter, close to the ground, which will allow the water to flow into the building and flow back out of the building. And all the wood structure is held up where we would have been if we built the floor up at the floodplain elevation. So we're allowed to do this. So it basically saved us about 3 feet of elevation.
So basically, I didn't see the exact plans. You're talking basically concrete underneath?
Yes.
Or maybe coming up, and then pylons, or however, your supporting structure after
Yeah,
that?
the timber frame is sitting on top of piers. I could show you that as we go through it. If you want me to skip ahead, I'll be glad to do that then.
It's almost like breakaway walls in its own.
Yeah, in a sense it is. Oddly enough, I just finished a house in Babylon after Irene. I'm way ahead on the next board. After Irene, I had a homeowner come to me and say, look, I don't want to deal with 2 feet of water in my house anymore. What do I do? So we jacked his house up and put flood vents into the crawl space, and he got through Sandy without a scratch, oddly enough. So the water came within 6 inches of his floor joists with Sandy. So that would have put him like 6 feet underwater. And he got through the flood vents, allowed the water in, allowed it back out again. In this case, it was a crawl space, not a residential unit. But these small rectangles you see around the perimeter, those are the flood vents. They're built into the band course at the bottom, so that we tried to make them as least unobtrusive as possible. And
Exactly. Awesome. Helps the area.
so, I don't know if you can see it all that well, but this is the concrete level, right through here. And the timber frame structure starts from that level up. The flood vents are right down in here. And you can see the relationship. This is actually probably the worst relationship of the boat to the floor of the boathouse. And this is up at the other end where it's at its highest point. So it's very close here. This is down by the doors right before it goes out into the channel. So I kind of got ahead of myself there, but that kind of shows you the basic idea.
I do have one question about the timber frame aspect. Is there any way that you are mitigating or dealing with, if the water comes up higher and gets to the wood frame, the timber, is there any kind of protection or augmentation or something?
Well, it's basically an open structure,
Right.
so it'll get wet. If it does get wet,
It'll
it'll
air
dry
out.
right out. It's not like we have all the framing encased in anything. It's all.
Okay.
That's one of the beauties of this timber frame structure.
And the
What kind of
connection?
timber will be used?
Doug fir.
Okay.
And the
Not
con-
CCA or anything like that?
No.
But rot resistant.
Well, if you put boric
Is-
acid on.
Is there and the connection detail from the foundation to the timber?
Yeah, we'd have galvanized connections
Okay.
to that. Let me Should I backtrack to the beginning?
By the way, the Rudolph Oyster House, which is a landmark building that's approximately 25 yards away from where this building is going, did take water on inside with the hurricane. And it's a marine building, and it was built to be open underneath. And so all we had to do was, when the water receded, had to do was just power wash the floor, because everything goes through the floor anyway, so it worked out fine. It didn't cost us a lot of money to get that back in order.
This is just an overview of the site. If you're familiar with it, this is the Marine Museum itself, right here. The Oyster House is this building right here, this L-shaped building. This is the Penny Boathouse that's there now, which is right here. These are both the same drawing. This is a little larger, just to help you out there. This boat, this is actually a boathouse also, handles smaller craft like 20 foot.
Boat shop.
Boat shop? Okay, boat shop. Boat shop. So they can work on smaller boats at this location, but the larger, the Priscilla and a few of the other historic vessels are needing a larger structure. So that's what this is all about here. And as you've mentioned, we provided this rendering actually from site photos, and you can see it does affect the view shed, but we still have a substantial portion of the view shed left open. And as you walk around, of course, it'll open back up again. So in a sense, you'll maintain it as you approach the building. And this is the Penny Boat Shop, and this is the new boathouse there. Just to give you an overview that way. And this is the site plan. This is, are there any questions on this? This is where the boathouse is proposed. And this is the channel that comes up, and the rail will come right up on that channel. This is an enlargement of the boathouse itself and the railway coming up from the water. This is the existing canal, and there's a portion of it that comes up to about here. There's some wetlands. We'll probably be extending a little bit of the bulkhead here to maintain the wetland area and create the channelway for the rail coming up into the building. So the railway will extend all the way to the other end of the boathouse. And then there's a set of doors here that if they wanted to access the boat and pull it through, they could do that. Right now we're showing subterranean drainage, like a stone system that you won't really see. It looks very large here, but it's all subgrade. So the grade will stay basically natural with the stone coffers underneath. And this also, one of the requirements is to tie the boardwalk around. This is a flush grade boardwalk. It's not raised up, so it's roughly within 6 inches of the grade that's there now. And we'll extend the boardwalk that is here currently around to the building to gain access to the two public doors, because this is the side that the gallery is on, that Steve mentioned, that people could come in and view what's going on with the boats as the men work on it and do some restoration.
Can I ask a question about that? And is there any anticipation of a pathway going, because you have those other buildings heading east, which, you know...
Connecting pathway.
Connecting pathway?
Not right now.
Not right now.
No.
Okay.
I don't know if Steve did.
The handicapped access plan generally is U-shaped, meaning that the buildings that are out on the lawn come back to the driveway. So we have some hard surface or decking connections. So this is going to be connected up to the deck here, and then this comes around, and then there's a little piece that goes to the driveway, and then you can get across
Okay.
and go around. So
All right, so there is a continuity of some
Yes.
sort. Okay.
So you come up and around, back down. This is a large plan of the building itself. These were the two access points I just alluded to, with the walkway coming around this way. Double doors here, single door here. This is basically the public gallery space. We have some windows here viewing in. This is showing the trolleys. They actually have these steel trolleys that the boat sits on. And we went out and field measured those, and that's it. And this is the basic outline of the Priscilla on the trolley itself, just to show you how much the boat goes from there to there. So it's pretty much necessary for the size of the building. We have a wood stove as the only source of heat in this building, and there'll be some plumbing and electrical, but there's really no real mechanical system. It's really meant to be kind of an outdoorsy barn type feel for the boathouse. And other than that, it's a pretty basic structure. There's some storage rooms and some stairs going up to the second floor loft area over here. And there's some doors here facing the bay. All the doors are barn style, sliding doors. This is a plan showing the gallery space above in this area. And the rest of this is the open timber structure for work. And these areas here will be used for storage of material. About there. Okay. So we'll go on to that. Is there any questions on the floor plan? It's pretty basic. And then we have the exterior of the building. Let me take this down. What we've done is, as Rich mentioned, the coloration, the off-white trim, and the siding patterns and colors are really meant to be compatible with the buildings that are on site. We have the Yonkers home, which is just beyond this gazebo if you've been on the site, which the siding of this will pretty much mimic that and be informed from that building. And then the coloration, the darker roof, we'll try to pick up the wood roof color from the Penny building.
I do have a question about process, sorry. And I think, Richard, you may have addressed this at one point. I'm just a little foggy about to what degree it was addressed. In the digging of this, making the foundation work, is there a process going to be anticipated for any kind of fines that there is?
It's all filled land.
Yeah, but I didn't know if there's anything happening about that or not.
No, it is all filled. This would have been marshland,
Okay.
originally. And the family filled this in like over 100 years ago
Okay.
to create this
Over
property.
years. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I should mention that the foundation will be pile supported because of the loamy type
The water.
structure that's down below. These are some of the elevations. Obviously, this one is the one you can see predominantly in that picture there.
Yeah.
Again, the clapboard siding, small little portico type roof over the public entrance and another entry here. We went with the metal roof on this one, and like I said, the coloration will be similar to, we're going to try and get as close to this weathered wood look as possible.
Metal roof,
Color.
one piece or?
Actually standing
Standing
seam, so they're
Yeah.
every 12 inches you'd have a seam. That's basically what these lines are all about.
I assume hurricane clips also to attach
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just making
Most
sure.
definitely. That's one of the advantages to this type of roof is not only hurricane resistant, wind resistance, but maintenance, long-term maintenance is not as required on these types of roofs. The color, usually the paint is warranted for at least 20 years at a minimum, which means that they always give you 1/3 of what it actually will do as a warranty. So I don't think we'll be having to worry about that for a while. We actually showed here a PV, they call it BIPIVs, which is Building Integrated Photovoltaic, on this roof. I don't
You
know.
are going to, that's very, very interesting. That's
Yeah.
great. So is the coloration of the roof going to be similar to the coloration of the PVs?
Yeah, the PVs have kind of a navy cast to it.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be perfect, but because it's a dark color, it will kind of drop
Somewhat.
into the background,
Mhm.
as opposed to if we went with a tan roof, it would be in your face. So
And that's just on the south?
It's just
South
on the
facing.
south face.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is actually the north face, which is the one you see in the picture. This is the south face toward the bay.
and the anticipation is that'll handle the load?
It'll handle most of the lighting load for the building.
Lighting
Yeah. There isn't a whole lot of load in this
No, I
building.
know.
so
I know that. That's why I
I
said,
think we'll be pretty good as long as the sun shines.
yeah.
These are some of the barn doors here, the clapboard siding, the flood vents, as I mentioned, the doors. We actually show this cupola here, which could be used for both ventilation. These could be awning-type windows, and also for natural light, because the lighting will be augmented as much as possible with natural light, so we don't have to get crazy with the amount of foot candles we have to produce from the electrical lighting.
Is it electrically automated, the
It will have to
ventilation?
be,
Yeah, okay.
Yes. These are some of the end elevations. They're pretty much symmetrical, same type of door on either end. You can see the drop here in the, as opposed to the other end. As it heads toward the channel, it gets steeper. There's a little bit of a slope to the rail, which will help in exiting the building. But as far as entering the building, we have an old one-cylinder right here, winch, one-cylinder gas-powered winch, which the Long Island Maritime Museum has taken on painstakingly to restore. And that'll connect to a turning post, which will pull the boat in and out and allow it to go in and out of the boathouse itself without much effort as far as people pulling on ropes.
Can we talk about the fenestration for a minute?
Sure.
When you were mentioning a minute ago, you've got the skylights for illumination, you're saying, which will help.
Yeah, these guys here.
Yeah. Is there precedence for the size of these windows?
A couple of them.
Architectural precedence? I mean, you know, in terms of historical referencing?
Not that I.
Well,
not that I-
there are
there-
numerous skylights in the, as part of the small craft building, which is the large metal building on the eastern portion of the site.
Well, I
Big-
guess,
Big T-shaped building, so there's lots of skylights in there, which is great, because then you don't have to use the,
no, the skylights are a great idea. And is there, I guess, it's a balancing act. I'm wondering, you know, if there's enough skylights to give enough illumination, because the skylights are on the north primarily, right?
Right.
And because the south has got all the
Yeah, the
photovoltaics.
photovoltaic.
So is the window, what I'm wondering, we were just having a
The
look-
windows look pretty small
Yeah.
on the north side.
And if there's a precedence for the size of the windows, I'm just wondering about historical referencing.
I can jump in here a little
Okay.
bit. Just like, appreciate this is like a barn building.
Yeah.
And also could relate to like a carriage house.
Yeah.
Designed from the time period.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's not a lot of windows in those structures. So that's the sense of it.
Okay.
You know, so from historic boathouses, there's not a lot of fenestration because it's really a
Workspace, yeah.
workspace
Yeah,
compared to a residential building.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and these portions here are the storage rooms, so there's really no real need for a lot of light in those spaces. And the transom lights will allow some more penetration of light into the space also.
Yeah, I think that's a great attribute.
Let me ask, well, I'm sorry, Mary Ann. That's the priority.
One of the things that I find missing in this presentation, it seems that there are two directions. You can design something that fits into this site and takes in elements from various structures on this site, or you could have shown us pictures of other surface water transportation centers, in other words, boat barns. I would like to have seen a picture of the facility that was lost in Patchogue. So they started in the Victorian era, they went through to about the 1920s. You've taken the approach of working in elements from this site, Initially, when I looked at this, I thought this is a little gussy for a boat barn. They're 8/8 windows, you know. I would like to understand why you chose this fancier exterior. And do you have any pictures of other boat barns for us?
I have one here. I think I might have a second one that was in the grant application. I can pass this around. This is from Sterling Creek Greenport.
Okay.
It gives you a sense. It just has one facade with the large doors and the windows.
So fairly simple.
Simple, but I can
Yeah.
pass this around. I think I have another.
That's the question she's asking.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and Steve, you might be able to speak to that the best.
I would
as
say
to-
that, I would say probably the fanciness of this might relate more to the visitor part. Historically, these boat buildings were just down and dirty work buildings.
Right, right,
They weren't
and
designed to have
Right.
like decks and walkways and covered.
8/8 windows
like
and
this
all
is-
this stuff.
That
yeah.
they
This
might
is-
have had.
This is a
That they
They
covered-
might have, yeah,
Sure.
Yes,
All right,
exactly.
well,
That's
but
why I asked the question.
if it's
historical
built in
residence.
1920, they wouldn't have had
Well,
8/8
No,
windows.
it
It
Come on.
depends.
Let me
Yeah.
ask the question a different way, taking up where Mary Ann was just talking about. She's talking about architectural unity. At the same time, I'm well aware that a lot of these work buildings, if you were put up haphazardly and just sort of sometimes expanded, et cetera, did not necessarily have an architectural unity to them. Nonetheless, I guess this question would be for Rich and also for the architect. Is there a general type of architectural unity seen either on Long Island or in the New England area vis-a-vis these types of buildings? Or is this more related, or are you trying to relate this more to the existing center as it exists right now?
Yeah, my own thing is, I basically wanted to relate this more to the on-site center itself. The only other boathouse that I saw was a huge monumental structure up on the St. Lawrence River, which could have been a cathedral in my opinion. It was absolutely gorgeous.
There-
But I mean, it was.
Go ahead.
It's interesting, a lot of smaller boathouses, for example, where I live, a lot of people in the 1800s used to dig little canals, maybe 10, 15 feet long, and put up little buildings, enclosed buildings, and lift their boats out with slings and things like that, and they were they had some sort of an architectural unity, if you will, to the period in time, and maybe even also to the house.
Right.
But I'm not sure that there was a full unity, throughout the island or anything like that. It was more localized, if you will. And so again, you're saying that you're localizing this, if you will.
Yeah,
Is
basically.
that where you were trying to drive at?
From my perspective, if I'd been given that choice, I would have made this building much simpler because of its function. I would have let its form follow its function. But, I think trying to tie it in, it's a new building, it's on-site, and then trying to tie it in to the tremendous variety of structures that you have on that site,
Right.
seems to me that you end up with this, which
So
it's a pastiche.
It's almost
I
like a
would have
balancing
built a
act.
barn.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you're also a barn lady, so.
I am, right.
Okay, it's almost a balancing act, if I may
Yes,
just one more second.
yeah.
It's almost a balancing act than what I'm seeing, what you're talking about, and what the architect is talking about.
I think there's a choice here. I think they've made one choice. I might have made a different choice. I would just.
But does it
I
harm the
would.
project?
No. I would like it to be clear that this is a choice that's been made.
But there also is an additional function to this building beyond just the boat structure for the visitors. So.
Yeah, but
it
if
by
you go to
necessity
a
had to be different.
right, but if you go to Beth Page to a historic structure, they don't change it to accommodate the school children that are coming in.
Because
They
that was an
preserve its
original
historic
structure.
integrity.
Because that was the
I think the
original
historic integrity of these structures is simple.
True,
Right, even-
but it's a
Well, there
balancing
is,
test.
there
That's all.
is,
Sorry.
there is precedence, I know Lake George and the Cape pretty well, and there is precedence for, especially when it's a wealthy family, enterprise, sometimes if they were, wanted to showcase something, they would gussy something up, they would fancy it up or do something special, unique to it. And I think, you know, you're
I'm not
val-
arguing that. I'm
Yeah,
just
I know
trying to
you're
save
not.
the
I know
county
you're
some
not.
money.
I understand.
You know?
I think that, I really applaud the effort here because I think he did have a huge task in trying to balance all those things. And there is precedence for doing, you know, 8/8 windows on, of a main, I've seen stuff like that. So,
Doesn't fit this site though, that's the real question.
well, I think it works really well as an architect, and somebody who's done planning and stuff. I think does work really well for the site. I'm very pleased to see what I'm seeing, knowing that it has all these various functions. And I appreciate where Mary Ann's coming from about more barn-like. And it was kind of a, you know, a crapshoot, I think, and calling, you know, I think he was trying to really address what the county needed, and I feel that he's done it very successfully. But, you know.
It's a choice.
It's a choice. It was absolutely right. Mary Ann's right. It was a choice, and I think they made a good choice. They could have made a worse choice. So.
Okay. I have a question. This project is funded?
Yes.
Yes, it's fully funded by the county and would be reimbursed by the state. It's a Department of Transportation grant. So it's the county's providing all the money up front, and then there's a county match of $63,000 and a match from the Long Island Maritime Museum of $63,000 for a total project amount of $630,000.
So in other words, as designed, it's funded.
We're hoping.
One other question.
That's the goal, yes.
This gets away from the architectural aspect. Is there going to be any possible commercial use associated with this? Because frankly, marine railways are not something that you find every day, and you know, so they're disappearing around here. And I mean, a lot of the larger boats probably can't go in there. But is there a potential for commercial use?
There's potential there, but it's it goes to the issue of business operations in a county park. We're not prepared to wander into that at this point, but there is a market of wood boats on the Great South Bay that can be taken out of the water and worked on for a couple of weeks and put back in, and there are people out there who will pay for that. So that is
Get it built first and then talk about it.
It's possible.
Always looking for revenue.
Yes, that's a good one.
All right, any other comments or?
No, I'm good.
Can I get a motion here?
I would make a motion as part of the Historic Trust. Well, the usual language is neg deck, but that this is consistent with the Historic Trust's mission.
And the Historic Trust approves it?
Yeah, and we would approve it.
All right, now I have a couple other
I'll
things.
second that.
All right. Some additions here is, this has been approved by the Department of State?
DOS.
DOS.
It's
Well,
Department of
the
Transportation.
DEC
Well, Coastal Zone Management or whatever, you said Department of State wanted certain things and you had to get over that. Did they give you an approval for this?
The grant application had a seeker component to it, and that was all reviewed by all the state agencies.
Yeah, DOT reviews, and they get the CZM permits that way. So if it's coming out of DOT, they may be able to bypass some of the DOS stuff. Literally DOS signs off.
Okay, my point here is I would like to have a whereas in this resolution, that whereas the, you know, design and application have been approved by, you know, the New York State DEC and other agencies involved. And whereas the Suffolk County, a secret lead agency, issued a determination of non-significance on the date of that resolution. Now you're going to get into your resolve that the Historic Trust, you know, approves of the design and application and finds it consistent with the site, whatever.
I'll add whatever you said to the motion.
And I'll second that again.
All right, do we have a vote here? Those in favor? Opposed? Mary Ann's opposed? Okay,
All right, you got it.
you got it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next project is a review of the proposed new entry doors to the main museum building at the Maritime Museum. This renovation, I guess, was also included in the 2002 conceptual plan for the Maritime Museum. And there's some photographs that were attached in your packet that show the original doors. This was actually the garage. It was not a carriage house. It was built in the 1920s as a garage for the estate and had two very large wood paneled doors that the museum took down circa 1970. Those doors are missing in action. No one knows where they are. And of course this was done before it was a designated historic site. The need for this is to provide the large garage door entry so they can move their historic boats and other items in and out of the building for exhibits. That's what prompted this idea. And then also to provide more in keeping with the structure compared to the entrance that they have now. So there's some historic photographs that were included, and the existing condition doorways, which are just standard Home Depot design that were installed a number of years ago. And again, Steve Jones, if you want to just give a little background to why you're looking to do this project and also the funding source.
The money for this is coming from the State Dormitory Authority. That's just because it was a member item from 2006 and it was assigned to the Dormitory Authority. I worked with the Dormitory Authority over the last summer to repurpose the 2006 grant to this project because we wanted to improve handicapped access to the museum itself. We wanted energy efficiency in terms of the fact that the existing doors are there's just like water leakage, air leakage, and everything else with the existing system, which is literally rotting in place. And we also wanted to have a component which took advantage of the fact that inside the building, in its original garage, the floor is heavy ceramic tile. So we wanted to, I wanted to see if we could get some passive solar going there with sunlight coming in on the south side and heating up the floor every day. And so the concept, going back to the 2002 plan, everybody agreed we need to spruce up the main entrance to the museum. It just it's a major statement to make. This is the front door of the museum building. This is the view that that is in all the pictures and all the everything. So we really wanted to do that, and so the question is, how can we meld what was there originally on the estate to what we wanted in terms of a program? The most difficult part of the program was the fact that every few years or so, the museum, we want to have the option of moving a large vessel into this in and out of the front exhibit hall. Which has a nice arched ceiling, and inside you can get some good sized boats in there. So how to make a new entrance and take that 9 foot high by 10 foot wide space and be able to take all the structural components out when you want to put a big boat in there. You can't just like open the doors because it's only 6 feet wide and 6 feet 8 high. So how do you do that? So we left that to the architects to figure out, and I think they've come up with a really great solution. After 6 tries, they came up with a really good, what I think is, and I think Rich agrees, a really good design solution that harks back to the original doors, but also provides the program that we need.
And at this point, I'd like to introduce Joel Snodgrass from Stewart Preservation Services that worked on this design with BBS Architects, and he can explain further the design they came up with.
Good morning. Some of you know me. I should at least give my background quickly. I'm a preservationist. My background training is as an architectural conservator and in preservation. So pretty much everything I do is with historic structures. When Steve first talked to me about this and he explained the reasons behind, I immediately realized this is a collaborative process, as which most of what I do is. It means tapping into people who have the appropriate expertise. completely unbeknownst to me, I contacted Larry, because Larry and I have worked on several projects successfully. It's been a very good working relationship. And it was only after I said, you need to be involved, that I found out he was already involved at the site. So it was sort of a happy coincidence. What I'm going to try to do is show you that I sort of jokingly said this was the biggest little project I've worked on, because it required a very thorough examination of not only what was there, but what might be realistic and therefore possibly appropriate. That's really what the goal was to look at everything we could consider to go in to draw a logical conclusion. And to speak to Marianne's comments earlier, which I agree, is it isn't necessarily appropriate to do it one way or the other, meaning my immediate reaction is not that you should be putting back exactly what was there to begin with, partly because preservation philosophy is that let's not try to fool the public. We want to at least be informative, but trying to also answer the museum's needed goals of an expandable entry that serves both daily function and periodic large opening function, if possible to get solar gain, if possible, and this of course is my preference, is to try to speak to the original design intent or the original as-built intent, and I'm going to focus on that in a second. So we went through an entire gambit of design considerations, from completely traditional to entirely brand new, alternate, completely contrasting on purpose, because we wanted to not only see would they work, but we also wanted to see, is it appropriate? You know, is it appropriate to try to do something that draws attention in a new way, but possibly is able to speak to historic precedent? So part of this process was to not only look at the existing conditions, but obviously to go back and look at historic precedent, which starts with an archival search. And Steve was good enough to be able to supply us with an original elevation and plan. As you can see, these were sliding doors, as would have been typical for a garage for full opening purposes. And I want to draw attention to a few things which I think was really interesting to this process. It was designed as an 8-panel door. 8-panel, 2 halves, 8 panels each, 2 wide, 4 high. But I want you to note several things that are going on. One is each of the halves, the sliding halves, was depicted originally with an emphasis break between, which is possible that it was some other bifold system, we don't know. But notice where that perfectly aligns with the division of the extant window above in the framework, which is an important thing, and you'll see as we go along. Also, take note of the size of the small size, I should say, of the door lintel below the window, because that plays into when you look at what's currently there. Obviously, it's been boxed in. But we realized right away, we're trying to now look at what our options are. The good news about this, and also seeing that what was originally built, is that it suggested that we would have the option of opening this up without potential nightmare from a construction standpoint, so this was logically boxed in. Now, the other thing is to note is we have an 8-panel door as designed, and what was built was an 18-panel door. Now that's not uncommon, as you all know, but the reason why I want to draw attention to that is the reality of new construction that meets code, that meets a certain degree of increased flexibility, if you will, physically dictates potential problems, meaning to have a new door system that would be multifunctional may not allow you the flexibility of installing details, panels in this case, if you will, in the same orientation. So what's curious here is that what was designed wasn't actually what was built, but at least it does give us the ability to say that there's some flexibility potentially in terms of how you would interpret this historically and pulling from reference. So we went down a path of trying to look at everything we could possibly, oh, by the way, I want to jump back for a second. A related component of this, which I'll get to the end, was also dealing with the window above, and note that there's an original ventilator window that's still there, which actually is an interesting component, but it's still there. It's part of a...
Joel, just to state, that is the original window.
Yes.
So that we're keeping.
Yes. And anyway, to go back to the doors, we intentionally played around with departing from what was originally there, partially to try to look at trying to get increased solar gain. And these are actually glazed panels. We played with variations that are calling upon what was originally built and actually increasing the glazing components. We actually went further afield and completely went to an entirely different direction, using something that's clearly contrasting. We also went very far afield, if you will. We looked at different door systems. We looked at full glass panels. We looked at lightweight metal aluminum, we've looked at bifold systems. We tried to look at everything and anything that might function here. And some very interesting things came up, however. Ultimately, this is a maritime environment, direct south exposure, and it has a need for durability long-term, as well as the ease of daily use and periodic wide opening. So all of these alternate systems that we looked at ultimately didn't pan out. They didn't appear to be something that would either be functional for daily use or really durable. And when I say functional from daily use, I mean ease of operation for the daily visitor. These are large panel doors that become hard to operate. We also went back and looked at sticking with what was originally both designed, variations on, and actually built. Sounds great, looks great in a photograph, but when you start to realize the size of these doors are very large, 9 foot tall, and nearly 6 foot wide. From a construction standpoint, adding a lot of glass, and these are heavy doors to begin with because they're thick, that's a very hard process to make it functional and easy to use, especially for senior citizens who would be coming and visiting. And much as we might have wanted to consider something like this, from a construction installation standpoint, it became something that really was not functional. As well as just from operational purposes and durability, it did not appear to be the right component. So we went down the path of this, but and again, I'm trying to show you that we went through every consideration we possibly could, but from hinging and support systems and so on, it didn't appear to work. Now, part of what I was drawing before, notice the reference of drawing upon the window above. We were also trying to be respectful of these divisions, as was originally designed, or in various ways, but trying to look at all of these components, and obviously trying to bring back smaller lintel system above for maximum opening to, again, to facilitate the museum's needs for the ability to have a rotating change of displays. What it ultimately did is it brought us back to a traditional wood system, which for me was a very happy thing to be able to say there's a justified reason for going back to something that's more traditional and going back to something that allows us to draw upon historic reference, which of course is my preference, and it worked out very nicely this way. The hash marks are basically showing you the hinging process. What this is actually a door within a door, meaning a smaller, but that's a standard size door. It's the same as what's there now. So this is a compliant width and height door, but it's a door within a larger framework. So this is a sort of an upside down L, if you will, with a smaller door within it. So on a daily basis, the smaller doors are completely functional on their own, and on a periodic basis, the smaller doors are closed, locked in place, and the entire panel opens up on both sides. These are outswinging doors, so they'd be code compliant. And if you'll note, this is a removable mullion bar, similar to what I'm sure you've all seen in various configurations, whether it's in gymnasiums and those kind of things, where the middle divider has to be removed. One of these actually exists in the metal boat display building that's on site. The idea being, of course, that to open it up fully and gain access, this would be temporarily moved out of the way, and then it goes back. You need this actually in place for a variety of reasons, everything from security and durability of closing, from weather stripping purposes and so on, but the idea is to have it be as minimally visible as possible. It's highlighted here so you can see it on purpose, but it would be painted to match so it would essentially blend in. Now, a couple other things I wanted you to notice is we've installed hinges, which would have been more traditional for garage use at that time, but we have invisible hinges and closers for the inner doors. The reason being is we're trying to give this the seamless look that would have been originally there on the sides, and to have it not appear as a door within a door, but the emphasis that allows you to see that is through the glazing on the center panels of both the door and the area that we're calling the transom directly above. That's to bring your attention both to the center, and this is playing on, as I've pointed out a couple times, this whole idea of respecting the divisions of the windows below. Now, my earlier comment about the need for flexibility and the possible physical configuration and limitations of installing something that fits plays out, and you'll see it here, and this was just our initial design concept on this, that the panels in the sides have to actually be narrower because of the constraints. Also, the divisions up and down does not allow you, because of the narrowness of the transom area above, you can't stick in the division of panels in a different way. Ironically, this turns out to be a combination of both the 4 high and the 3 wide, what's built. So it ironically combines both of what was designed and actually was built in terms of the panel configuration. This is obviously speaking to trying to get increased passive solar gain inside. We're trying to be reflective of the hardware that was here. These are flat back, rectangular back plates with door pulls that are reminiscent of the original sideways door pulls that were flat back rectangular. As I said, we're using invisible hinges and closers. On the inside, we're trying to see if we can use small push plate ADA bars that would, instead of the full panic bars that would go across. These would obviously all be fully weather stripped. There'd be a new saddle put in place. Actually, it possibly would be a slight increase in the elevation to help the water naturally cant away. We would be using interlocking weather strip, which is the durable traditional weather stripping, which is very, very durable. We would be using drop-down weather stripping on the bottom, so the doors, when they're open, it's both invisible and moves out of the way. When you close it, it actually pulls down, gives you a solid seal. And then we'd be considering things like neoprene gaskets, which can be placed more easily for maintenance purposes as time goes on. The doors are soon to be constructed of durable materials such as mahogany. And everyone always says to me, "You've got to be kidding me, why are you doing mahogany? That's so expensive." The cost is in the labor. The material cost is actually, yes, it's increased, but it's not normally excessive in terms of other materials that you'd consider. So if we can do that, that's what we're going to try to do. It is heavier, but that's why you need these heavier duty hinges. And they would be painted, protected with a high quality exterior grade system that's appropriate for marine environments. Likely white, which is what has been there for a long time, which is what it appears to be from the historic windows. But I'm also going to take a paint sample. Paint analysis is something that I do just to verify what's there, and so that the museum will have a record of what the paint history is on the existing doors. And so it's a complete concept. There obviously may be some adjustments for the designs, but it would be essentially flat inset panels, as was originally there. It would be similar moldings to be reflective. And the nice thing about this design is it's speaking to the flavor of what was there, of the original design intent and what was built, but it's also clearly different, so that anybody who comes up can see that this is not a historic door, but it is playing off what was originally there. And of course, the nice thing would be to have a display inside, so when somebody walks in, they have a pictorial explanation of what went on, what went into the process. I'm a real believer that there should be something left on board so that the casual observer can come in and get an education from this as well. Now, I wanted to draw your attention back to the window. In the handouts that you were given, I think on the very last page, if you could flip to the last page, there are 2 pictures of representative pictures, I should say, these are them, of a storm window. And the reason I included this is part of what we were trying to accomplish was putting some protection in place for the window above, which of course is surviving and in harm's way from continual weathering. I should jump back for a second. The state office for a long time had poo-pooed the use of exterior storms because of the reflectance, the monolith reflectance that you get as opposed to the undulation from individual panes. Great idea, it's all valid. However, the windows tend to deteriorate rapidly. And so now there's a recognition of saving them, protecting them is actually more important. And so the use of full panel storms has really been endorsed at this stage. The nice thing about this system, if you look at this is a very, very simple idea. It's an insert panel, exterior insert panel storm, very narrow track storms. It's like sliding triple track storms that you've seen in anybody's house in terms of the size of the exterior. It's about 3/4 of an inch around. But the idea is that it would sit inside the exterior framework of the window. And in theory, when you see it from standing 10 feet away, it blends in and becomes nearly invisible in terms of its physical presence, as opposed to, say, a traditional wood storm that is 1.5 inches to 1 3/4 around and actually has some weight and is seen. This tends to become fairly invisible. It's a simple idea in terms of attachment. They can be screwed in place, fixed, also removed for maintenance. They're weather stripped on all sides, but they're given a breathable weather stripping on the bottom so that there's no moisture entrapment and anything that goes in can move in and out. It obviously shields the majority of the window, except for the frames themselves, from weathering, and those are the most vulnerable components, so that becomes clear. Because of its height, You probably don't need to do tempered glass, which obviously is an option because it's not in a direct path of impact. And we did pay attention to the angle of the sun, but we need to clarify whether or not there would be some need for UV. At this point, it doesn't look like you need to have UV filtering because the path of the sun direction hits most of the floor and not display components on the wall. And so that's the thought right now. But the idea is basically to have 3 panels inserted, cut to fit. And once they go up, they can stay as long as they need, and if maintenance has to happen, they can easily come off as well. So with that said, I think I'll stop. We'll see if there's any questions you have. I'll try to answer them. So.
We're running, the floor, I forgot, is it concrete or wood in there?
No, the floor is
It's
basically,
concrete.
it's quarry tile.
Ah.
It's 6-inch quarry tile.
I remember.
And,
Okay.
you know, and it's typically, it slopes in the middle, there's a drain in the middle.
Right.
And it's substantially intact except for a little damage at the door. By the way, I meant to tell you, for me, you know, I was like a little kid when I first walked in here. The original floor tracks are still there. You can see them side to side. And going back, we did consider, should we put in sliders? Should that go back? You've got, you know, display elements on the walls and so on. So it meant we realized that it could be done, meaning the museum would temporarily stop what they're doing, pull everything off the wall and so on if we were to put that back. But that really wasn't realistic in terms of their ease of functionality. And that's what led us also back to the idea of swinging doors.
Again, I think this was a complicated problem, a small little part of the building. And I think that the thought process has been very comprehensive. Although it may not be a traditional approach to the type of building this is, doors of this nature have been done for centuries on all kinds of buildings, especially on churches and courtyards and et cetera, et cetera. In America, it was not used that much, but occasionally you would see something like this. Even in Washington, D.C., I remember seeing something like this. But so I think with the tasks that you have, the demands of this highly functional element to the building that needs a lot of attention on a lot of levels, personally, I think it's a really good solution. I think it's been very comprehensively done, and I really am happy to see you're not touching the window other than to protect it. I think that's really an important element, and to try to marry the two, what was originally drawn and what was built, marry those two and use that as your benchmark for coming up with a design solution, I think is really good.
We had one quick question. What is that little door called? I've heard them called a
yeah.
sally port, a scullery door.
Yeah, I've heard a few more, which I'm not remembering right now, but yeah, and you're right, they're used in garages, I've seen them used in barns.
Yeah, they are used as, yeah.
And they're normally a little more obvious, meaning the hinges are normally on the outside. You see it clearly, it's a
Yeah, on a
garage
garage,
door.
sliding garage doors and things.
Right, and
Yeah.
sliders with hinge doors, and I've seen hinged with hinge doors. You know, obviously in this case, we intentionally tried to be
To try to
invisible
hide it.
so that you get that
Yeah.
reflectance of the monolithic panel that was there originally.
In overhead doors, they're called wicket.
Wicket?
Doors, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know.
I wanted a Florentine Duomo kind of a thing, but the budget wouldn't allow it.
Your trouble.
The budget wouldn't allow
I
it.
told them that wouldn't be appropriate.
Any other questions or, yes?
So explain again why the windows need to be narrower on the outside.
In here?
'Cause it's probably
The panels.
just to taste the panels.
Yeah, I'll try to put a little, these are actually glazed, meaning these are glass inserts in the smaller doors and directly above, whereas on the side, these are actually wood, as was originally there. So, you know, going back to the design and built, these are just flat, recessed, or what's called inset panels with simple trim around them. Whereas what we're trying to do is actually kind of play in both directions, where these are also flat, recessed wood panels, wood faced on both sides, and then we have glazing. What I was calling attention to was the fact that once you're confined by the physical requirements of putting in a compliant door. So we're dictated by the size of these smaller doors that have to be ADA compliant and functional and meet code, which means inserting them and also including this center mullion that they close against, which is about 2 to 2.5 inches wide. It leaves you with only a certain amount of space on either side. So that means the size of this outer framework is dictated by the size of the doors with the mullion installation. So you're left with only so much on either side. And we could have played around with these panels and actually had them come closer to the edge of the framework, meaning had the size of all these panels mimic the same across in width. We intentionally played with this to say, let's try to look at how we draw more attention to the center, make the focus more the center, make it intentionally different. Again, to speak to both this overall emphasis that I drew upon, you can see that there's these vertical lines intentionally calling to the split, which ties into the framework of the window above. And so we've tried to do that again. Basically, it's the outline of the glazing which calls this attention. So we were trying not to bring as much attention to the side panels. Now, we could, in theory, widen these, but then that means you're going to get an encroachment on the edge and the spacing, which is doable. It's just this was what we thought would be a more appropriate design aesthetic. I don't know if that answers the question.
Okay, other questions? Do I have a recommendation?
I make a recommendation that we go forward.
How about you?
Richard, you need an approval, disapproval from the
Yeah.
Historic Trust, right?
Yes.
Now,
Approval.
I have another question. What is the procedure by which this action proceeds? Does the Parks Commissioner have to approve this?
Well, essentially, Parks has approved this, otherwise we wouldn't have brought it forward here. And this was approved, as I mentioned, in the 2002 conceptual plan. We didn't have the exact design, but the need to bring the large doors back was stated in the conceptual plan, which was approved by the Parks Department and by CQ in
And
2002.
was there a secret determination in that 2002 approval?
For the conceptual plan, yes, there was a review done.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah.
secret's, for all intents and purposes, is complete.
So
Yeah.
I recommend approval of this design solution for the replacement door.
A second.
All right, and we have to add a clause that when the 2002 approval went through, that secret was, county was lead agency, and secret was complete. Okay?
And that too.
All right?
Well said.
All right, do I have a approval? Those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good presentation. I've learned so much about windows in my life.
Okay, that concludes the two projects we had for the Long Island Maritime Museum. The last project is at the Timber Point Clubhouse. And I just want to give you, again, a little background to this. The two projects we're reviewing today, the stair tower and the new window and doors for the south wall of the dining room, were originally part of the Suffolk County's upgrade of the building. There was 3 phases of work that were done, but the final phase, the third phase, we were not fully funded. The stair tower was, or an additional staircase is required by the New York State Building Code and our Department of Public Works to bring the building fully to code so we can access and use the east wing of the second floor. Right now that is closed completely to office use and public space at this time. So that's...
We were talking about when we were at...
Yes, it came up at the last time when we met on site. That review specifically was for the addition that Lessing's Caterer was proposing for the building to extend their catering space. Just, that idea has been shelved right now. We're reconsidering how we can design within the existing footprint of the building to accommodate their needs. That will come back to you when it's fully designed. So that's a bit up in the air. We're negotiating with Lessings right now on that part of the project.
So all those architectural drawings that we saw, when was it, a year ago?
Shelves.
Yes.
That's shelved.
Right now, yeah. It really was not fully discussed between Lessings, Caterers, and Suffolk County Parks Department, and so we kind of jumped ahead with the review. So we're pulling back on that and having another option that we'll bring forward to you. But we're not reviewing that today. All these two projects we're reviewing, which were not funded by the county when Suffolk County Parks advertised for new caterer which started this year, 2013. They added to the capital improvements required by the new concessionaire that the stair tower be built, and the windows I don't think were required in the contract, but we had all agreed we had wanted to do that a while ago. So, but the stair tower is required to be built by Lessing's Caterer since they were awarded the contract as part of their capital improvements to this site, amongst other things that they'll be doing. So this design has been in the works for a number of years, and this is the concept we came up with that relates to the existing conditions. If you look in the back of the packet that was sent you, there's 2 photographs of the there's actually 3, okay.
Yeah.
There's one that shows the east facade, and this is the location. Again, Larry Feely will explain it further, where the tower is planned and how we related it to the design elements of this facade of the building. And then also the existing photograph of the window, wall, and door in the dining room, and then what's proposed. But I wanted you to see the materials and the look that's there now. Also, there's a historic photograph taken from the interior of the dining room that shows the multi-pane windows and the doors that were there in the 1920s from the renovation which occurred, that created the clubhouse. And that's really the time period we're interpreting at that site. I don't know if there's any questions from me before I turn over to Larry Feely, who will explain in detail the design that's proposed for these 2 items.
If I might point out before we proceed, is that we have some members that have to leave by 11:30, so I would appreciate moving this along because we also have to review the packet. So,
Did you hear that, Larry?
I hope I'm short.
Okay. So Larry can explain the design.
Sorry.
All right, this is just an overview plan of the whole building. The areas that we're concentrating on are the stair tower down at the east end and the 19th hole on the south side of the building. What is traditionally known right now as the 19th hole, if you've played their golf there at this point. As Rich said, this is the beginnings of the new configuration, but we're not going to go into that right now. We had an addition that we all looked at together in this area previously. The stair tower at this location allows the second floor. Right now, the second floor is serviced by a stair here and here. And down this end of the building, the only way to get out of that end of the building is a fire escape, which is on the outside of the building right now, right here. Can't see it on here. Rich's photo probably shows it,
It does.
the fire escape.
can you pass those around?
Yeah, this is
In the back
It's in
of your
the-
in
packet.
the back of the packet.
here.
This is an additional photo that clearly shows the fire.
After the EAM.
It's this one,
No, it's
Yeah,
in the photo.
that's an additional photograph.
All right.
okay?
Yeah,
Good
that
pass,
that helps see what's going on
Got
down
some
at
brick
this end
and
of
the
the
next one
building.
shows the fireplace.
So what we did in the last renovation was adding a stair here for the county use, for the second floor offices in this area. This stair is being considered to be taken out, and then we need a secondary exit down at the other end of the building because of travel distances required by code. So after looking at all the constraints, the only place we had available was basically right where it is here.
And Larry, just to state, the first floor in that location has the kitchen and the dining room.
This is the kitchen,
Right.
this whole area here, and this is the 19th hole here. This is the main dining room here, and some public toilet facilities here. The main entrance to the building is right there. We've had to shift this stair tower after doing some survey work. There's many mechanical units placed around the building. So from what you saw last time, we actually had to shift the stair tower out and a little back just toward the south. But it is back a ways from the face of the building on this end here. Looking at the elevation, this is the elevation from the bay. And this looks predominantly, looks like it's out at this face, but it really isn't. This face here is right here, and the stair is
That's basically what you presented a couple of,
this is here.
what
Yes.
was it, a year ago?
Very
I mean, that's
similar.
basically the design that we're looking at.
It's
Right.
basically,
More or
yes.
less.
But that wasn't part of that review. We
I
kind
understood
of
that.
jumped
Yeah.
into it.
I mean, I remember Eva talking about it, and
Yeah.
it fit and it didn't fit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
things like that.
Right. So,
Basically, the real question here is, does it fit? I mean, aside from the architectural aspect of it, does it fit? Is it viable for this structure? If that's what we're really being asked to look at.
Yes, as the historic trust.
Yeah,
Right.
I think, I mean, I like the windows. I think that's really important in a staircase, having natural light, you know.
right.
I question whether there's even enough. Is there a reason why there aren't any on the lower level, the brick?
Probably just the way the stair runs up along this wall. But I mean, we could try and fit them in there.
As long as it works, you
Yeah.
know, graphically in terms of architectural components. I like that you've got the windows at the very top on the short side.
Right.
I also question whether these windows are big enough. I mean, they look much smaller than some of the other windows that are on that facade. And because that's such a big surface, this building has such a, one of the cool things about it, it's very light and airy, there's a lot of,
Right.
a lot of glass to the south. And I think that breaking this facade a little bit more to have maybe a pair of windows or something that mimics what's on this facade already.
Yeah, she's got a point on that. I'm not an architect, and I'm not exactly someone with great architectural taste or anything like that, and I know I'm on the record saying that.
You got that, Christine?
Okay, but, everybody looks at me. Excuse me, I'll sue you all later. But nonetheless, she's got a point. I mean, it looks odd just having those little keyhole windows in there. If you're going to try and tie that silo, if you will, in, you may need to, maybe the windows are the way to tie it in. I understand you need a silo there, basically, to get a staircase going up there.
Right.
And as we discussed, what was it, a year ago, it's not the optimum solution, but it's the solution that's there right now. In so doing,
Right.
from a historic trust standpoint, you need to tie it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I take what she's saying. I think she's
Yeah.
very accurate on that. And I think we also have, if you will, the authority to say, as part of the historic trust and looking at the building, I think we have the authority to say yay or nay to certain of the details as they are presented to us. You know, I'm not quibbling about the entire structure or anything like that. I think that goes beyond what we can yay or nay on, but the historic integrity is important. That's what we are here for.
Okay.
Wouldn't
It's
it
a-
be
it-
8/8?
Doing it,
Well,
she's saying
or-
8/8.
A pair, because you do have some pairs, it just needs more glass area because it's such a big wall.
Right.
And I think to
Yeah.
keep that lightness, it just looks like this big, heavy thing was stuck on the end. And I think to avoid looking like that, it needs the glass.
Yeah, you need to tie it in better.
And even on the level, even if it means you have to do, specialty windows because of it,
Right.
if the stairs running by. I don't know. It's
Or
something
paint
to
a
take.
window
Yeah.
on.
Actually, we're constrained on every level with the handrails, going up.
Well,
But I mean, I
there are
could-
things you can do
I'll
to get
work-
around that,
Yeah.
though. You know that.
Right.
So,
Well,
and then,
no,
I've seen structures where they have handrails and there are windows right next to them.
Right.
it means the window has to
We'll
be a
have to-
specialty window. It is more expensive.
Oh, okay.
We'll have to do tempered glass.
Yeah,
it's-
exactly.
It's not insurmountable.
Right.
Do it.
And then the connecting part, also, what,
Right, yeah, I was just gonna say
you're
that.
gonna say the same thing, yeah.
Like, couldn't there be a window
There's,
there?
I think there should be
Yeah,
windows
we
there
could
too.
add windows there.
Yeah, because it's cutting down the massing of the
Just-
structure.
What about the flatness of this roof?
It's because if you look at the other side, it's dictated by he's using the same pitch, which is appropriate. If you look at this direction, it terminates there. So that's why it looks like that.
Yeah.
And
You get
ki-
3
you're
out of 4
kind
sides.
Yeah, you're kind of lost, you're kind of stuck with that.
Again, this is
Unless he
less than
changes
optimal
the
solution.
shape, the pitch.
Are
And
you
I-
talking about this section here?
No, she's talking about the end, why is
To
it
the
truncated?
right-
It's truncated.
To the right on the top,
The
yeah.
peak is
This
trunk,
guy?
Peak
peak
on, up top, yeah, on the roof.
is truncated because in the other
yeah.
direction, it's a full triangle.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, you're stuck with that. You can't, it's a hard thing to come to.
Is this a time-sensitive project right now? In other words, if a week or 2 or 3 were lost, would
No,
that be
I
a problem?
don't think so.
Yeah, I'd rather see that with more windows.
Yeah, so if there's also,
But my thing about the 808 was that why do these not have panes on the bottom?
so, like,
Well, you can
None
see-
of these have,
yeah.
Again,
You got
I
what
can't
looks
say
like
because I
that's
don't.
the window,
know
I
this.
assume, or
If
not?
you say
Existing window.
8 by 8. And
Okay, is that gonna remain?
Let's talk to Mary Ann about it.
I don't know, you tell me, like, is it okay to not have?
Yeah, so I think that needs it, and these need to be, I think.
I,
If we've
It's
got time
probably
constraints,
functional.
maybe we
So,
should
as you
put this
go,
off till next
Um,
month.
not all of them are
Is it
paired
okay?
off.
Yeah, well, I'll give it a couple more
But they
minutes.
are bigger.
There was a packet after this.
Okay.
But just that there nowhere else are there
right,
there
exactly.
windows without panes.
What do you mean windows?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah,
there-
tying it together might be,
There are various windows from the original building, house that dates the 1880s, and then the Colonial Revival windows that were added in the 1920s. So there is an
Building's a
assortment.
real pest.
If you
Yeah.
look at
There's
the
a little
facade
bit of
here,
everything in this building,
this
too.
Yeah.
this facade
True.
especially retains, I guess, majority of the 1880s elements, and you'll see that's the windows that he, related to.
Yeah, that he's
But when you're
pulling
looking at
from.
it
Yeah.
from the south?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're standing in the south, looking to the south face of the building.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
looking north, but, right. So, every single window but the two new ones, which will now be 6 or 7, 8, whatever new
They're all
ones.
6/6. Well, they're not, though. That's the
No.
problem.
Well,
No,
it is,
they're
I
8
understand your point, because we
over-
are going in that direction with, in a sense, the restoration of the 1920s part of the building. So Larry, I guess we could look at that as an option?
Yeah.
But
I
I
if
don't-
you
think
look
it's
at this
critical, I think it's more than
photograph,
just an option, I think it's
the
critical.
photograph of what is there, there are
Yeah.
3 different.
Right.
yeah, she's
Right,
right.
but you're looking
Yeah.
from a different view.
Well,
I'm
no,
okay with that
Well,
side.
But I
That
don't
side
have
is
a
fine.
problem, like this is-
Because it works from the other side, the side that Marion's pointing to it works nicely, that
I
side
think it's
works well.
fine. I mean,
And
Well-
so when you come around the south facing, it doesn't
What
work
if-
well.
I think
What
it
boils-
works.
What
I-
it boils down to for me is this is an ugly structure. We've got no choice. We've got to try and make it as pretty as possible. And the plan as presented, while viable, needs some tweaking. And however
Yeah.
the windows come in is however the windows come in. If it's possible to tweak it to get larger windows in there to tie it in, I think that's the way to go.
Right.
And that's the limit of what I can
Based
say
on
on
what's
this.
been said, should we table this till the next
Yeah.
meeting so that it can be
Uh,
tweaked?
You want to approve it subject to tweaking, or,
Yeah, I think it's a,
well, again, we're not time sensitive, from what I understand. But, Mary Ann, what are you thinking?
I'd let it go. I really would let it go.
Yeah.
Look,
yeah.
I don't like buildings designed by committees. If you have a strong objection to something he's done, and you can substantiate it, tell him. But we're designing this by committee, and I don't like it. I would approve it.
Okay. My personal opinion is I don't like the building without some better windows, but that's as far as I can say. I can't say what a better window is.
Right. Like, I think it needs more windows on that
More larger.
brick.
Because otherwise we're going to be stuck with a monstrosity.
Yeah, I agree. I feel very strongly. I know you've done such beautiful work, so I think this would just be the
We
icing
need
on
to
the cake.
fenestrate it better.
You got it.
All right, what's
All
your
right.
desire here?
I'd like to see a pair of windows, two.
All right, but the
No,
question, you have to
table
make a
or go-
decision
Oh.
now.
You have to table it.
All right,
Proceed, or you
table.
want to take?
Motion to table.
Motion to table?
Second.
All those approved?
Please.
All right,
Motion
Opposed?
to table?
all right. So we shall see you again.
You're close.
Larry, you did want the windows, do we have time for that, or?
What?
Let's get through our, Jim, recommendation, let's get through our formal stuff, and while we still have a quorum, and then.
Yeah,
get into the
I
other
would
stuff.
like to get to the packet, please.
He'll have to bring it.
The February 5th, 2013 packet.
Yeah, one thing on that very, very quickly. This happened last meeting. It's 1083, making a secret determination in connection with the proposed coastal steward shellfish restoration program. This is the one you were having problems with seeker. I called up Brookhaven Planning and tried to figure out what was going on with that. They had not done any kind of secret, near as I can tell. Our instruction to them was, if they've done any secret, let us know what they have done. I haven't heard back. I don't know if the commissions has heard back on it. The packet right now says make a secret determination. I don't know. I would just,
I mean,
in
you
default,
know-
just let's type to it.
I mean, here again, was it proposed, what, unlisted action, or was it a...
Oh, yeah, it was an unlisted. Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
so
clear neck deck.
basically, we don't have to rely on the town of Brookhaven, it's up to them to complete secrets, so this can proceed the way it is at the county's level, and then it goes to the town, and,
Well, hopefully they'll recognize the need for it, but.
well, unless somebody sues them, they got the statute of limitation runs out in 120 days, so...
All right, good enough then. Okay, I can live with that.
All right, is that your only,
That's my only quibble.
I needed to draw your attention to IR 1035 on the second page. I inadvertently left out the recommended secret classification.
You're fired.
It should be a recommended type 2 action under 6 New York Code of Rules Regulations, 617.5C, 20 and 27.
all right.
I didn't see anything else in here. Motion to accept staff recommendations as presented and amended.
Okay. All right, those in favor? Opposed? Okay. That concludes the agenda. Now, is there something else that, yes?
Yeah, well, Did Sarah
Richard,
talk to
didn't
you?
you have the other?
Well, it's just the windows, we can bring them back next time. Larry, is there any urgency to review those windows in the dining room, time-wise?
The 19th hole?
Yes.
That one might be, if we could look at that.
Do you have time for that?
yeah, we
Yeah.
won't have a quorum, but
Yeah.
Okay.
We have 15 minutes, supposedly.
Okay. We have 10 to 15 minutes, Larry. Maybe we could complete that one.
you got 3 minutes. These are windows. Come on.
Pretty much what you have is, this is what's existing.
Right.
There's a 2'6" door here, a large picture window, for lack of a better term, and a louver. And these windows are rotting out. These are the originals that Richard
From the
gave you a
1920s.
photo. Yeah, these transom windows. What we're looking at doing is replacing the transom windows, putting in a legal door, and then adding two panels.
Keeping the same
Yeah,
design of windows as is over there, but just multiplying them a little bit.
A
Is that what you're
tripart,
saying?
it's a
Yeah.
tripart.
Right.
Yes,
An
exactly.
equidistant tripart.
And it lines up with the transoms above. You know.
So it's bringing back the multi-pane design that was there,
Yeah.
upgrading the door from what the existing to a better design and a more substantial door, because that's a well-trafficked route between the dining room and the golf course.
The only question I have is, the picture window was there for a reason, because it really does give a very nice view of the golf course when you're
Right.
standing in or sitting over there.
But that
But
time period, like
Time period,
the
I
transom
understand.
light, if you look at the historic photograph, including your packet, the 1920s colonial revival had the multi-pane windows.
But
And
remember
that's-
also, they didn't have glass like that back then. They couldn't make large picture windows like that. That was
Actually, believe
They did,
1920s.
they did.
They
Believe it
made
or
glass,
not. Oh, yes.
not very good.
You had
Wrong.
Chicago.
no, you're wrong, because there was.
Michael.
Michael,
Sorry.
Yeah.
It was- I'll tell you later.
it did exist,
Chicago, 1800.
but it was a
Come on,
con-
geez.
Oh
it was
my
a
God.
conscious.
This guy beat me up, I'm wrong.
It was a conscious decision as the colonial revival design to have the multi-pane windows.
I think it's appropriate and
And
very
that's-
nicely done.
I agree.
You know,
Have a
that's why
motion?
we made that
I
decision.
make a motion to accept.
Second.
Historic approved.
Even though I'm wrong.
Done deal.
All those in favor?
Aye,
You're living
aye,
up to your name. Thank you very much, I appreciate this.
aye. Okay.
All right, do we have
Motion to
Louis
adjourn?
Sullivan.
other business?
No.
Please note that there's an article in your packet. And any CAC concerns, don't read from the CAC. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
I think we should thank Richard for doing the entire agenda today.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
I'm
By the
glad we
way-
And
had
well
all this
done.
time. We obviously needed
Yeah,
it.
A lot of good stuff.
Thank you for bringing it when there was a light agenda.
What kind of
Kinda worked
windows